Greetings, ladies and gentlemen, it is I am the one and only Silver the Hedgehog here, and once again I am back for the likes of the Mexi Toys videos. And ladies and gentlemen, welcome back for some more of Let's Play of Mario and Luigi Superstar Saga, aka for those who lived in Japan, Mario and Luigi RPG for the Game Boy Advance. So last time, we somehow basically did manage to able to leave Bean Bean Kingdom, or specifically Bean Bean Castle, because relatively speaking though is that we need to able to retrieve the special cure item for Queen Bean after that particular stomach issue, for I've realized, and as a result, along with that, we also did manage to able to equip our first badge for specifically for Mario in some cases for right about now, which appears to be none other than the Bean Badge. So that way we can able to increase our not only bro points, but in addition to the forms of power attack as well, at least specifically for Mario from now on. So because of that, and alongside with that, we also did manage to able to make our way to our next destination we're about to be heading to next, and that's what appears to be taking place in Chucklehuck Woods. So because of that, to try to find ourselves the forms of Chuckola special item as far as I'm aware. I mean, mind you though, it has been about a couple of hours since I actually have last played this game for sure, but relatively speaking though, it's about the fact that we should be able to realize for the fact that we ended up exploring around some different sections of this particular Chucklehuck Woods. So, and after a while, we also did manage to battle against with some more enemy encounters, despite the fact that we were so close to able to try to deal with the forms of Gold Beanie. But like I said before, there's actually 3 alternative ways to able to actually encounter that enemy. So because of that though, yeah, relatively speaking, I was about the fact that everything else checks out there basically. And before that, on the other hand, we did somehow manage to able to first time manage to able to bump into not only Popple, but in addition to Roki as well, which despite Roki looks a bit suspicious, doesn't it? Especially it almost feels remarkably similar to Bowser. Well, I get the gut feeling about that. But regardless of such though, we're pretty sure it's basically Bowser, but just likely for the sake of the forms of short-term memory loss or something like that. Maybe, I haven't got a clue, but that's mainly because I didn't pay attention to the forms of the in-game dialogue and all that stuff. So, anywho, so yeah, today for this video is that speaking of which, is that we should able to actually continue our progress in terms of the forms of Chucklehuck Forest, or Chucklehuck Woods, to be more specifically. So as a result though, we'll get the idea, battle some more enemy encounters, and so far we actually did manage to able to collect one of those special beans, as far as I'm aware, in order able to actually continue our progress for this point, because as you can definitely tell for the fact that in order able to actually bypass that particular old tree, almost right near to the forms of that particular you know, with the forms that special medicine as far as I'm aware. So as a result though, we do need to able to collect all 3 of those different colored beans before we're able to continue our progress for the sake of time. So because of that, yet again, that gold beanie somehow got away again. Jeez, that's not a great sign, because I was really expecting to try to able to increase my more experience points for that regard, but as a result though, it's most likely depending on the forms of the actual specific strategy issues as far as I'm aware. But regardless of such though, we'll keep trying I suppose, but if we don't manage to able to get him in time, then like I said before, hopefully whenever we're able to meet up with him again, join at some point in the later worlds or the later areas as far as I'm aware. So anywho, yeah, a few things I want to talk about this is though, and that's what it appears to be for the fact that, well, today's date of course there is the 4th of November today, in some cases in 2025 today, and no matter what though, we just literally got about 2 more days to go until Hyrule Warriors Age of Imprisonment is going to be releasing for Nintendo Switch 2. Alongside with that, we also got about 16 more days to go until Kirby Air Riders for Nintendo Switch 2 is also going to be on its way too, and most importantly though, is about the fact that when it comes to, well, Dragon Ball Sparking Zero for both Switch 1 as well as Switch 2, well, as far as I'm aware, we just literally got about 10 more days to go until that game is going to be releasing for both Switch 1 as well as Switch 2, of course. So because of that though, and I suppose no matter what though, we're just around 1 month left until Metroid Prime 4 Beyond is about to be upon us when it comes to not only for Nintendo Switch 1, but as well as Nintendo Switch 2 version as well. And by that time comes, obviously though, that pretty much concludes, to me anyway, when it comes to getting several of those video games when it comes to 2025 as it goes by. Although I was expecting to originally get, you know, Yoka Replayly for Nintendo Switch 2 specifically, but I might have to wait on that until specifically once we get around onto 2026, if it's anything else possible, for the fact that if the actual sales about to drop when it comes to one of those limited time few percent off kind of scenarios. But at the same time though, it's about the fact I still need able to try to work on playing through not only Yoka Lele, but in addition to Yoka Lele and the Impossible Lair on my spare own time. Well, that's mainly because there are a lot of games I did manage to check out, not only on my Nintendo Switch of course, but nowadays with Nintendo Switch 2 of course. So, what's this? We actually stumbled across into a familiar critter, which appears to be none other than the Wiggler itself. So no matter what though, we have no choice but to let Mario go for that hole over there, and oh jeez, it won't budge. So yeah, I guess we somehow made that Wiggler pretty mad. So I suppose we have no choice but able to try to deal with her, I suppose. So yeah, let's grow Mario back into its size, and this will pretty much lead us to the next boss fight, which appears to be, well, what else? Wiggler. So as far as Wiggler is concerned, obviously though, in order able to try to calm her down, as you can tell, basically though, we need to attack her segments. So because of that, all four and everything, so as a result though, it's about the fact that if you try to able to actually not calm her down, it does not do anything when it comes to the forms of any damage input. So because of that though, we have to specifically try to able to calm her down by keep on jumping onto one of her four segments. And if you've done all four of them, like I did right there, now it's your chance to able to actually do some bit of devastating damage when it comes to the front of her face. So because of that though, speaking of HP though, as far as Wiggler is concerned, Wiggler does have 34 HP, and then if you managed able to defeat her, I'm pretty sure you're able to actually get about, I would say, 120 experience points. And when it comes to coins amount, I'm pretty sure it's 0 or 87 in brackets as far as I'm aware. I mean, relatively speaking, like I said before, the actual results tally is not exactly the most accurate thing in the world, but at least that's something, I suppose, when it comes to the forms of trying to mentioning about the forms of some, you know, alternatives as far as this is worth considering for. So I'm not gonna lie, trying to jump over her attack can be felt a bit difficult at times, but regardless of such though. Oh yeah, and by the way, we've also learned the second Bros attack technique, when it comes to not only for Mario, but as well as Luigi as well. So yeah, that's actually a nice plus, especially considering for the fact that we somehow learned the hammer techniques from earlier. So yeah, that's pretty nice to have. Although I'm sure enough though is about the fact that I'm pretty sure we're now on to 50% when it comes to learning the Bros attacks basically. Well, except with the advanced version of those specific techniques, but don't worry, we will get around into that at some point. So yeah, as you can definitely tell, I accidentally jump onto one of those Wiggler segments again, so this means about the fact that you have to specifically try to turn those segments into all yellow, because if you accidentally step onto one of those segments again, turning the yellow ones into pink or red ones to be more specifically, obviously though, oh wow, that's about it. So at the very least we got some experience points, but not so much coins. So, and was a huge bonus for that part is that we somehow got not only the level up for Mario, which this time around we're now on to level 14, and if I can recall, we also get our next level up for Luigi as well. So let me think of something. I'm also going for defense option right there. And sure enough, yes, we did somehow level up Luigi as well. So because of that though, looking good so far in terms of leveling up and stuff like that. So just in case we can able to actually make sure that battling enemies is important. So anyway, so at the very least we somehow increase the speed for Luigi. So that pretty much taking care of the forms of Wiggler for now. And let's go and try to go into there and find ourselves our next little colored bean as far as I'm aware. Although it's technically a fruit, so yeah, I think I wasn't paying attention to the forms of the text box that much though. I mean, regardless of such though, because like I said before, it's been about a couple of hours since I actually have last played this game for sure, because relatively speaking though, I've just recently managed able to once again, to get the 100% completion, not only for Mario's playthrough, but in addition to Luigi's playthrough as well, when it comes to Super Mario Galaxy 2025 edition for Switch 1. And for my final thoughts of it though, I'm just a little bit disappointed. I mean, relatively speaking though, it still is a fantastic game, don't get me wrong, but it does feel a bit, I don't know, kind of feels a bit, well, it's hard for me to explain, but either way, I'm sure we're able to actually get around on specific details about that in the later time, but for now, let's get back into the actual cave section in here, so just in case we can able to actually try to find the other blocks I somehow forgot to able to hit it with, so... And also, we've recognized these platforms like this ever since in Stardust Fields, so it's been quite a while, hasn't it? So, anyway, the next thing I want to point out too, actually, and that's what appears to be for the fact that, well, did you guys know, it's been 20 years since that particular Nintendo DS game did somehow first came out back in 2005, and that's what appears to be 42 all-time classics, or to be more specifically, Clubhouse games, which that was basically, it's like the, a DS installment just before the Switch equivalent, which appears to be 51 worldwide classics for Nintendo Switch, except the fact that obviously though you have to deal with dual screens, get it? Because, you know, dual screens represents Nintendo DS basically. So anyway, now as far as what I did manage to realize also, for the fact that there's actually a Nintendo Switch 2 edition for the likes of Nicktoons, and the Dice of Destiny is going to be coming too. But unfortunately though, there's one little drawback with that particular version. Well, let's get to the positives thing out of the way when it comes to the phones of the Switch 2 version of Nicktoons and the Dice of Destiny game. First of all, the resolution is going to be ramped up into specifically 1240p, so I've almost first thought it was going to be 1440p, or in some cases 4K, but unfortunately though that's not the case. So because of that, and also the game is now going to be running onto 60 frames per second, so because of that that's always a huge plus when it comes to specifically for Switch 2 players. However though, you might able to expect of what's to come. Unfortunately though, that game in particular for Nintendo Switch 2 version of Nicktoons and the Dice of Destiny, unfortunately that game is going to be another one of those stupid game keycard releases. I mean, seriously though, the majority of those Nintendo Switch 2 games at this point, it seems that most people seem to found this to be very unbelievable when it comes to this particular format. Like for instance though, with the first party Nintendo Switch 2 games made by Nintendo themselves, or in some cases other companies in general, that at the very least though, they somehow managed able to bring in an actual game inside of the actual cartridge straight off the bat. But when it comes to game key cards, it just feels like a dumpster fire when it comes to the forms of, you know, third-party supportive titles, which is especially noticeable that imagine if the next Sonic game will be releasing on Nintendo Switch 2, or specifically some exclusives for that matter. I get the horrible feeling about the fact that there's going to be a lot of poor sales when it comes to the forms of, you know, game keycard formations, when it comes to, you know, third-party supportive games, which is, you know, very understandable when it comes to some consumers out there. I mean, still, it just feels like a missed opportunity at one hand. So, anyway, so there's that warp pipe right there, which I'm pretty sure that pretty much leads us to some warping zones here and there, which if we go in here, obviously though, unfortunately though, we only have one option, but that's mainly because I didn't seem to be able to explore around most areas from now on, but I promise you I will get around into it at some point if we do manage to able to keep on finding some more not only chocolate beans, but as well as different kinds of beans here and there as well, which is especially noticeable if you really want to go up for the challenge when it comes to replaying through the exact same minigames again, and just trying to keep on farming some more beans if you really want to get something a little bit more of a specialty. So, but even then, we'll get around into that at some point. So, and also another thing too is about the fact that I did somehow realize about something too. Apparently though, The Simpsons Fortnite Shorts is going to be coming to Disney Plus, which I was not expecting that. I mean, sure, I've already seen some scenes before, but not all of them, mind you, but that's mainly because I'm not entirely sure if it's going to be specifically either 2 episodes or 3 shorts or anything else like that. I mean, it has been about a couple of days since I actually have last watched The Simpsons, thanks to the forms of our Disney Plus subscription. So because of that, I mean, at this point in time, is that until tomorrow, not only for the fact that the Fantastic Four First Steps is going to be releasing on Disney Plus until tomorrow, but also Sonic Rumble is releasing tomorrow as well. So because of that though, I'm sure a lot of players out there will finally get a chance to play Sonic Rumble for the very first time, not counting the forms of the specific private demos or anything else like that, or it's hard for me to explain because it's been a very long while since I actually mentioned about the forms of Sonic Rumble, since it finally did manage to bring a proper release date for the game, thanks to the forms of one of those announcements and all anything else like that, so... But anyway, speaking of games though, is that potentially speaking though is about the fact that, well, we haven't got that long left until, to be more specifically, one of those specific events in general, which appears to be the Golden Joystick Award show, that obviously though we're able to actually make it happen until specifically on the 20th of November to see what the true winner was. And as far as I'm aware, they actually bring up, let's just say, if I can recall correctly, there was actually like 12 nominee awards in regards to the forms of that particular Golden Joystick Awards, and that's what it appears to be Indiana Jones and the Great Circle, Ghost of Yeti, and also Hollow Knight Silksong, Blueprints, and also Death Stranding 2 on the Beach, Claire Obscure Expedition 33, as well as Silent Hill F, as well as Hades 2, Split Fiction, Peak, Donkey Kong Bonanza, and finally Kingdom Come Deliverance 2, which, as far as I could pronounce that correctly, so... Oh, and another thing too is about the fact that, speaking of Fortnite, apparently though they're going to be bringing in another collaboration between not only for Fortnite, but in addition to SpongeBob is reportedly coming very soon. So as a result, yeah, between Fortnite and Sonic Racing Cross Worlds, they're expected to be able to actually try to get the SpongeBob collaboration, which I understand because it was very popular at the time when it comes to SpongeBob SquarePants, of course, which is especially noticeable considering for the fact that not only for the fact that the, well, the next video game out of it is going to be releasing soon enough, but on top of that, the 4th movie is going to be on its way too, specifically until next month. So because of that, once again, that gold beanie just somehow got away again. Ah, jeez, that was very, very, very unlucky on my part. Well, again, I literally did try, but unlike something related to Paper Mario, specifically with the Amazing Daisies, is that obviously though that Maxi did indeed manage to learn that particular technique when it comes to dealing with the forms of Amazing Daisies, but not just by the forms of trying to, you know, equip certain badges, but on top of that, trying to fully level up one of the partners in particular, specifically Bombette especially noticeable if you do manage to fully upgrade, you know, Bombette as in full power. Obviously though, you will get a chance to deal with devastating attacks in regards to the forms of anything else to be more specifically. So because of that, yeah, that's what I can really say about the forms of that comparison with all the secret enemies in particular. But I do know there's actually another appearance when it comes to Gold Beanie as the enemy itself. He also appears in Mario Luigi Dream Team Brothers as well, but he only appears in a dreamy world, so no matter what though, I don't know if we can able to actually discuss on that front, because, relatively speaking, at the moment right now, we can only focusing on 2 games at a time, as we expected, so, also, this particular enemy decides to able to spew out those fuzzy enemies, well, despite the fact you can't jump on them, so you have to physically try to avoid them, because otherwise, if you dare touch them by mistake, obviously, though, you're gonna get hit, so, but I digress, so, yeah, I guess no matter what though, that's as far as we can able to try and talk about in terms of the forms of today's topic at this point. I mean, sure, I would have liked to able to explain something else, like, oh, I don't know, that there's going to be yet another update in regards to the forms of Nintendo Music application. They're trying to bring in yet another music selection on there. Well, because last week, about the fact that they've already added in New Super Mario Bros. On DS. So, I don't know what specific game they added in next for that particular category, but I'm sure enough though, I'll talk more about that probably at some point until tomorrow if possible. So for now, let's just go ahead and try to deal with the split formation between both Mario and Luigi. Well, except there might be a couple of times that we do have to let Luigi go to the other side. And as you can tell, there's another switch right there, which sure enough though, if we activate that, then this will pretty much lead us to the third and final colored fruit. So because of that, I mean, relatively speaking though, that... Oh jeez, I'm pretty sure I got screwed over right off the bat, because I almost first thought that was going to be like a, well, a switch or something, but it turns out though, it's actually a spring, which pretty much leads Luigi onto the other side. So because of that though, unfortunately we got the time up, so we have no choice but to try again. So hopefully this won't take that long, so either way, we only got about 15 seconds exactly until we get there in time. So because of that though, yeah, there's going to be a lot of times that you have to deal with a lot of, you know, back and forth in between, not only for Mario, but as well as Luigi as well. So either way, now we actually got ourselves the white Chuckola fruit. So because of that, and that way, that should do it. In regards to the forms we're trying to proceed into the next part of this particular location. So... And yeah, just before we do anything else, I just want to make sure if there's any X marks the spots that's actually going to be seen through. So because of that, oh yeah, and another thing too is about the fact that also during around that time into any forms have been tomorrow. Well, I'm probably not going to mention about it right about now, but relatively speaking of, what I can gather, there's going to be a bonfire night, meaning there's going to be a lot of fireworks. So by that time, I do need to get these recording sessions done. Just before when the fireworks decide able to interrupt with our filming process. So hopefully I'm also able to get these recording sessions done just before when the fireworks is about to start. So just in case you don't want to hear all this constant loud bangs here and there. So just in case about the fact that the only thing you can only hear what matters the most is of course not only the game audio sometimes, but in addition to my commentary as well. So just in case we can able to actually can tell that I know exactly what to do when it comes to the forms of not only trying to balance it out when it comes to sound mixing, but in addition to the forms of how the fact that, well, still, no matter what though, is that our Roxo Game Capture HD Pro still works very flawlessly, except the fact that there might be some occasional moments where or should I say, on one of those rare occurrences about the fact that the capture footage gets a bit freaked out at times, which obviously did manage to bring not only multitude of color squares, but in addition to about the fact that the sounds can be felt a bit disjointed. So anyway, so now we actually can now able to progress, and oh gee, talking of the devil, we actually come across into not only Popple, but in addition to Roki again. So no matter what though, they somehow basically wait until whenever we did manage to able to do a lot of hard work by delivering not only one, but in addition to 3 fruits just before we're able to get to this point. So because of that though, ranging between red, purple, and white fruit. So just in case we can now able to proceed into, well, to be more accurate though, the north portion of this particular location. So because of that, and thankfully though, as soon as we're able to actually continue onwards for the sake of time, not only we got ourselves the refreshing herb, which obviously though, about the fact that if you dare manage to use that item, basically though, it actually removes those particular temporary status, as far as I'm aware. So anyway, so somehow we managed able to make our way to the forms of the, well, the last stretch of this particular path, which pretty much leads us to the special cure thing for Queen Bean. So once we're able to keep on moving forward, and chances are we somehow made it to that particular, well, the actual Chuckola Reserve. So at least that's as far as I'm aware of anyway. So I mean, then again though, I apologize for my commentary is a bit iffy sometimes, because I already mentioned about quite a number of things in the past few moments notice. I mean, relatively speaking, that was about the fact that, well, at least in terms of the forms of my playthrough so far, of this particular game anyway, it's actually gone pretty well so far, apart from a couple of exceptions, which appears to be missing out on defeating the golden beanie sometimes, but that's besides the point. So, and also you do realize there might be some occasional dialogue right there, like it appears to be for the fact that one of those NPCs did manage to able to almost speak into the actual French accent, which I was originally trying to able to actually mention about that particular dialogue, but I have to be honest here, I'm not very great when it comes to speaking in French language, but I do know there's one specific purple and white skunk that is actually really good when it comes to pronunciation, when it comes to French and stuff like that, and you know exactly what I'm talking about. Fifi La Fume, of course. So because of that though, well, I was expecting to able to try to invite her into this particular part, but unfortunately though, that she's basically felt a bit illness right now, which I do need able to like focus on this from now on. Although I'm sure enough though that Blue Toad was desperately worried about her, which is understandable considering for the fact that she has, or he has some very strong feelings with Fifi La Fume, but that's besides the point. So oh gee, something tells me there's going to be another boss battle, which I'm pretty sure this particular guy is actually going to be, I don't know, working for him, I guess? So we have no choice but to fight this particular little weird thing right there, which either way, yeah, I suppose we're going to be up for the challenge, hey. Although something's worth knowing for too is about the fact that I get the gut feeling until tomorrow that unfortunately though I'm about to be going back on playing through Mario Kart Tour again, so much for going back onto Mario Kart World for the time being. So relatively speaking though, I can able to just, well, you get the idea. I'm also able to actually try to, oh nice. We only got like a decent amount of damage, but nowhere near as like as much because I do need to practice some of the forms of those specific bro moves attacks. And then once I do manage to get the hang of it though, I might able to increase the difficulty for slight modifications to it. So we actually got ourselves Cropper Bros, which at this point we somehow basically learned that particular attack right about now, and there's also Knockback Bros. So because of that though, we can essentially just try to do that. So anyway, let's get into the forms of the status when it comes to this particular monstrosity of the boss, and that's what appears to be known as, well, if I can recall correctly, his name is Chocolata. Basically though, Chocolata does have 300 HP, and then if you do manage to defeat him, you're able to actually get about 260 experience points. And as far as coins are concerned, I believe you only get about just none of those coins, unless there's like 100 coins in brackets, as far as I'm aware. I mean, again, like I said before, sometimes the actual specific results is not exactly the most accurate, but it knows what it is, I suppose. So anyway, oh wow, that's actually pretty swell. Although sometimes it might take a bit while to able to try to get the amount of damage to him though, because relatively speaking though, is that's how the bros attacks comes into play in regards to the forms to try to deal with boss battles in this game, because that way it actually deals so much damage if you try to pull this off successfully, because you know, you get the idea for this point right from the start though. So anyway, so it looks like he's almost down. So I suppose we should be able to now try to deal with the forms of a different difficulty setting when it comes to the most current bros attacks, as far as this is worth considering for. Let me think of something. I might as well just stick around with the forms of bros attacks from now on, and if I attempt to run out of the forms of those bros points, then luckily we can able to occasionally try to use our syrups, just in case we can able to restore our bro points, as far as this is worth noting for. So was he? Oh, gee, I did not realize he's actually going to be restoring his health, which, yeah, I could assure to you he's basically working for him, so, at least if I was assuming so anyway, so, dang it, I somehow messed it up. But either way, it looks like he's now onto its different shape, so, yeah, we have no choice but to keep on attacking him with just simply using a hammer, as far as I can recall that. Oh, don't you? Come on, why did you able to let him restore his health? I mean, he's essentially almost down, right? I mean, sometimes he really occasionally trying to able to show up at one point, and potentially speaking, just trying to make the battle a little bit lengthier, longer. Well, regardless of such though, it's about the fact that sometimes boss attempts able to heal themselves sometimes, which is especially noticeable in another one of those cases being, well, not only Bowser, the final boss in Paper Mario, for the sake of the forms of not only once, but twice, within the forms of both phases in particular, which appears to be the first phase in the final chapter, where he does manage to restore 20 HP, but in the true final battle, he did somehow restore for about 30 HP, which is a bit much in my book. So, dang it, I somehow screwed this up, didn't I? I'm guessing it's probably because of the weight, as far as I'm aware. But either way, regardless of such though, he's basically done. So either way, and I'm pretty sure we're now on to the next level up, for not only for Mario, but as well as Luigi as well. So we're now on to level 15. So yeah, that's actually pretty swell. So I suppose we should probably increase our bros points. So yeah, that's actually pretty swell for that particular number I somehow hit. So... and as far as Luigi is concerned, I suppose we should probably try to increase our... let me think of something. I might as well go for power attack, so that way we should able to try and make it a little bit more balanced when it comes to status between both Mario and Luigi simultaneously. So because of that though, yeah, there goes one of your jokes and puns there, mister. Especially, what the heck is he doing? Aw, dang it, you really screwed us up! Although ultimately though, we ended up in the underground caverns again, and Mario got trapped in the actual barrel, and meanwhile for Luigi, he got separated. So because of that, now, there might be a couple of times throughout the majority of the game is that in some sections is that we have to go into separate ways. Like, for instance though, we are now going to be able to take control of Luigi right there, because thanks to Mario got trapped in the actual barrel, filled to the brim with a lot of like, Chuckola Reserve, and it's up to us to able to actually just make our way to the barrel, and hopefully we can able to reignite with Mario again. So because of that, now, as far as I'm aware, this wasn't the first time we can able to actually try to take control of a singular character, because that usually also happens at the very beginning of the game, like specifically trying to take control of Mario at first, when it comes to not only trying to able to walk around at one point, but in addition to able to, well, have a chat with the those NPCs, and also try to get some items from the item block. So, and no matter what though, despite the fact that we didn't do that much battling at the beginning, aside from battling Bowser of course, despite the fact that we don't get any of those experience points after all. So because of that, yeah, because for instance though, that was also before Mario Luigi Paper Jam Brothers, as far as I'm aware. There's that one particular, or few sections in particular, they obviously only going to be able to take control of Luigi in some aspects. So because of that though, and I don't think we can probably mention about this right about now, because after all though, we are still playing through the first game in the series of course, so relatively speaking I'm not entirely sure if it's going to be possible we can able to go through every single Mario Luigi games, well, including with the Advanced Paper Mario games as well, because remember that we still don't have the 3DS capture device, so this means we have no idea if we decided able to be planning for doing our, well, other Let's Plays of those specific games in particular, like Dream Team Brothers for Mario Luigi, as well as Paper Jam Brothers, as well as the 3DS remakes of not only Superstar Saga, but with Bowser's Minions as a side story. But on top of that, same applies with the Bowser's Inside Story for the 3DS with Bowser Jr.'s Journey side story. So because of that though, and relatively speaking I highly doubt if I was going to do Paper Mario Sticker Star, because that game usually sucks. So because of that though, definitely the weakest in terms of not only the Paper Mario games in general, but on top of that, the worst RPG Mario games of all time, just because of all that. Well, you get the idea with the lack of experience points, and not only that, generic world themes, and you pretty much get the idea. Although, Mario Luigi Paper Jam Brothers also has the exact same issue as in Paper Mario Sticker Star when it comes to level themes and all that stuff, likely for its generic themes and all that stuff, but at the very least, I do appreciate with the music track on Paper Jam Brothers to me though, because relatively speaking, I was about the fact that I always attempt to really enjoy the soundtrack when it comes to RPG games in general, like, you know, with Kingdom Hearts, and in addition to Paper Mario games, as well as, you know, Super Mario RPG within both the Super Nintendo version, and even nowadays with the Switch remake, so... But anyway, and if you couldn't tell already, it's about the fact I do apologize for that very unexpected belch earlier, but this is mainly because I usually just decide able to drink lots today, because even then, although I was expected to try to able to drink like a cup of tea or something like that, but let's face it though, it's about the fact that at this point in time, the weather condition is once again very miserable, and no matter what though, it's about the fact that we now need to rely on not only you know, rainy weather, but in addition to strong winds here and there. So anyway, so let's go and try to able to, well, interact with this particular barrel so we can able to actually hop onto one of them. And as a result, this will pretty much lead us to the riverbank that, straight to the point, it will take us straight into, all the way back to Bean Castle, which, as far as I'm aware, we did somehow made it, despite the fact that Mario's been loaded with the falls that particular special medication for Queen Bean. So yeah, now is a perfect opportunity to potentially try to recover Queen Bean. So either way, so now we can now able to actually utilize with this particular Chuckola Reserve. So yeah, that way we should able to actually just, well, bring her back to its normal state. So... But anyway, oh, and another thing too, in regards to the forms of anything else I'd like to discuss upon to you all about something, and that's what appears to be for the fact that I'm not entirely sure if Blaze the Cat will, assumably of course, we're able to actually go back on playing through Donkey Kong Country 3 for the Game Boy Advance. Well, until to be more specifically, well, it's pretty tricky to tell, because I haven't exactly heard from anything from Blaze the Cat recently. And also, according to what Blaze told me the other day, unfortunately though, for what I've realized, more Bowser's minions in terms of our company of the Maxi Toys has been turned up, which, as far as I can recall, there are a few more minions, such as, well, let's just say, for instance though, for what I can gather, not only there's Dry Bones, but in addition to that, there's also buddy forms of not only Boo, but also a Goomba, and not to mention though, that I get the horrible feeling that Bowser, at least in terms of our universe, did somehow manage to bring in yet another new bad guy, which appears to be King DDD, for trying to taking over buddy forms of a lot of... You get the idea for that point. So, but let's not get about ourselves at this point right now, because I have to be honest here when it comes to this particular role. In regards to the forms of the Maxi Toys, all things considered, I would refuse to able to actually try to invite not only Bowser, but in addition to Bowser Jr., and on top of that, with Dr. Eggman, as well as the forms of what I've heard about as well, Dr. Neo Cortex, Frieza, and, of course, Cozy Glow, to be invited into the actual The Maxi Toys group department, because even then, I've noticed they are up to no good, especially noticeable with Cozy Glow especially, but either way, I've heard so many stories about it. So anyway, speaking of stories though, here's the forms of a little brief of this backstory about the forms of the Bean Star, which I'm guessing that's gonna be the main plot MacGuffin that we have to try to utilize with, and she basically explains about the forms of the reason why that Cat Collector did somehow manage to steal Princess Peach's voice to begin with, is because, well, generally speaking, I was about the fact that, well, obviously though, that's how they managed able to use Princess Peach's voice to able to bring up the Bean Star, which I suppose that'll be the case. I mean, relatively speaking, I was about the fact that we can pretty much expect to realize that, yeah, that's what Cat Collector's plan was all about then, when it comes to able to try to claim the Bean Star. So either way, so anyway though, also as far as I'm aware, that depending on the forms of how it factor with some situations, like for instance though, if you couldn't tell, for the fact that, well, it's hard for me to explain about this personally though, but I do know for certain for one thing is that, well, obviously though, unlike the 3DS remake, when it comes to Mario Luigi Superstar Saga, in terms of the title screen, obviously though, there's only one option to select, and that's of course Game Start, whilst unlike the forms of how it does it are not only Bowser's Inside Story, but in addition to you know, Dream Team Brothers and Paper Jam Brothers. Well, at the very least, you do have 2 options to select, ranging from, well, let's just say in Bowser's Inside Story, for instance, you do able to actually access to, well, not only game stars, but also with Mike Test, which we'll get into more details about that soon enough. And also we meet again with Prince Pearsley. So anyway, in terms of Paper Jam Brothers and Dream Team Brothers, assuming of course you need to beat these 2 games in the first playthrough, that's the thing, you do able to actually unlock not only Jukebox, but in the well, in Dream Team Brothers especially, but on top of that, the music player in Paper Jam Brothers, whilst unlike the 3DS remake of Superstar Saga and Bowser's Inside Story, also for the 3DS, obviously though, they only have, well, let's just say, game starts in Superstar Saga remake, and then compared to Bowser's Inside Story remake, it just says begin, and I was just like, okay, that's a bit odd way to able to actually bring up the actual introduction to that particular title screens as far as I'm aware. And also keep that in mind though is about the fact that, well, usually in Mario Luigi Superstar Saga on the Game Boy Advance, you do able to actually access to 3 different options when you're able to get into the title screen, and that's of course Mario Luigi and Mario Bros, which then again we'll get to that eventually, as well as options, so you can able to change those various settings along the way. So anyway, and then as far as the forms of Superstar Saga plus Bowser's Minions, as far as I'm usually concerned with, obviously though, in order able to actually access to Bowser's Minions, as far as I want to classify for something, you need to physically try to open up the suitcase, and then when you see the Bowser's Minions little icon at the very bottom of the bottom screen, basically though, that pretty much signifies it actually takes you straight into the side story. So because of that, unlike in Bowser's Inside Story remake for the 3DS, not only for the fact that if you do manage to select your file, then obviously though for the fact that, well, relatively speaking though, is that if you do manage to able to go into the actual file, like for instance file number 1, it actually takes you straight into 2 of those adventures, ranging from, well, Mario Luigi Bowser's Inside Story, and the other mode, Bowser Jr.'s Journey, which as a result, thankfully it's accessible in the actual beginning portion when you boot up the game, because unlike Superstar Saga for the 3DS, you do need to able to actually physically try to go back and forth between Superstar Saga to Bowser's Minions when you're trying to actually open up the suitcase. So, and speaking of Bowser's Minions though, I'm not a big fan of that particular side story, like any sort of capacity, but that's mainly because the actual mode is just pretty luck-based, and it's also worth noting for too, I'm still basically stuck on in one of those very annoying battles, somewhere in the Vaults of Bean outskirts as far as I can recall. I mean, mind you though, because it does still requires a lot of level up grinding in order to make the process a bit more manageable, but the problem is though, to me though, is how stupidly luck-based it can be, which this could be also applies with Bowser Jr.'s Journey, by the way, which fundamentally speaking, there's nothing right to home about. In terms of the faults of how these gameplay aspects usually came into play. So as you can see, we've met again with the Fonstad photo booth, by the way. And unfortunately though, if you're probably wondering what the heck is going on with these sprites, by the way. Well, I was expecting to try to able to change those poses and what have you, but here's the catch though. In order to able to actually replace your photo on your passport, you do need to now pay 100 coins in order to able to replace your photo into a different brand new one. And no matter what though, for some reason, whenever I manage to press my directional pad within up, down, left or right, for whatever reason, the game just sometimes gets a bit freaked out, which I'm not entirely sure why. If that's the case, well, relatively speaking, I will try to sort something out on my spare own time, or if not, that could wait until a later time. So for now, let's go ahead and try to buy some more gear parts and stuff like that. Like for instance though, we can now able to actually access to some more pants and jeans, especially for both Mario and Luigi. Now, if you pay attention to the phone's those colored icons in between the phone's those little clothing gears, when it's fully in red, this means it's only for Mario. Now, once it's fully in green, this means it's only for Luigi. And if it's like a combination of both red and green, this actually represents you can either equip it for Mario or Luigi. So because of that though, so I can see the resemblance from there, which now continues that tradition for specifically Partners in Time for the DS as far as I can recall. I mean, relatively speaking, is that, like I said before, it's been a very long time since I actually have last played any of those Mario Luigi games because, well, after all though, for the fact that we somehow managed able to barely just somehow got started in terms of our new genres of Let's Plays, as far as you can definitely tell when it comes to RPGs. Like, this is the third one after all, when it comes to doing an RPG game after all, so relatively speaking, we can able to expect to realize how interesting this particular experience is going to turn out to be. So because of that, yeah, you pretty much get the idea about that. So also, we somehow meet up with that familiar NPC character on the left earlier. Well, it might look a bit very similar to, in some areas, ranging from not only, Chucklehuck Woods, but in addition to the forms of Hoo Hoo Mountain, or Hoo Hoo Village to be more specifically, but ultimately though for the fact that he, just somehow shows up. So anyway, here's the forms of the main aspects when it comes to grinding for those beans to begin with, and that's what it appears to be, for the fact that you can actually make your very own, let's just say like a cup of hot drink or something like that, while trying to able to actually bring in beans with you. So every time you do manage to able to collect those certain amount of beans with you, then obviously though you can able to actually expect that you would able to actually make yourselves a Hoo Hoo blend. So as a result, this way, this allows you to potentially give you some special effects. So either way, also, that ghost looks remarkably familiar, doesn't it? And if you remember from the first Luigi's Mansion game for the GameCube/3DS remake, you do realize that particular ghost right there was actually very familiar. And also, Professor Egad was there. So no matter what though, he somehow managed to got himself a familiar gadget, which is of course the Poltergust 3000, with the exact same sound effects and everything, with all that vacuuming the actual ghost like this. So yeah, that's actually pretty cool, especially considering for the fact that Luigi's Mansion did originally came out in 2001, and then this game came out in 2003, specifically on the Game Boy Advance original version. And what's even more cool is that potentially speaking of, as you already expect, that the original Luigi's Mansion game on the GameCube was already available onto the Nintendo Switch 2 online subscription services, within not only the American version, but as well as the Japanese version and the European version as well. So because of that, now I can assure to you that every time when you do make something new, when it comes to likely for bean drinks and stuff like that, I get the feeling that Professor Egad always attempt to show up when it comes to able to try to impress him when it comes to likely for different tastes and etc etc. So yeah, that's actually quite something, I suppose. So anyway, yeah, I guess no matter what though, that like I said before, there's nothing right to harm about when it comes to other discussions alike. I mean, my prediction for that particular Golden Joystick Awards, it could be either be two different options. It could be either be either Donkey Kong Bonanza or Death Stranding 2 on the beach, because what I can gather that those games, well, to be more accurate though, the only game I only got when it comes to those specific games has been listed. That's of course Donkey Kong Bonanza, because I really do enjoy Donkey Kong Bonanza. In fact, without a doubt, is my favorite Donkey Kong games I've ever played right about now. Especially, it was likely aside for the fact that it's usually beaten up when it comes to be on #1 spot. Well, here's the rundown for you in regards to the forms of my favorite Donkey Kong games I've ever played. #1 is easily right now is Donkey Kong Bonanza for Nintendo Switch 2, and then second place goes to Donkey Kong Country 2 Diddy's Kong Quest for the Super Nintendo version specifically, and also in third place we have Donkey Kong Country Tropical Freeze, either on the Wii U or the Switch version. I would say the Switch version because despite it's very identical to the Wii U version because of the forms of similar graphics, but it does manage to improve upon the loading times and stuff like that. And Yeah, that's precisely the point. And 4th place goes to, I would say, the original Donkey Kong Country for the Super Nintendo, but that's mainly because of unique charm, and also because it's the first ever Donkey Kong Country games that's ever made. So relatively speaking, I've got nothing else to say about that. And on top of all that stuff though, as far as 5th place, as far as I'm concerned, it will definitely have to be by the forms of Donkey Kong Country Returns, of course, for either on the Wii, 3DS, or the Switch version. So because of that, despite the Switch version does have some loading times issue, and not only that though, weird sound mixing in regards to the forms of transitioning between the actual level and the loading screens in particular, which is still feels a bit incredibly odd to able to have a louder loading screen music compared to the forms of how it does it for, well, you get the idea for this point. So, anyway, so as you can see, we somehow managed able to have a brief read on those particular descriptions on these particular books, which actually signifies the specific advice ranging from first strikes on some of these enemy encounters, and on top of that, getting lucky attack performances as far as you can definitely tell. And also, the more you try to successfully try to pull off the bros attacks, then you should able to actually get your hands on the advanced technique variations. And on top of that, with that particular stash points here and there as well. So because of that, also you do realize about the fact that the entire castle town has been fully restored and everything. So this means that every single path has now been accessible, including with the forms that particular building over there, which I could assure you this will pretty much lead us to yet another warp pipe. So logically though, that way it makes fast travel a lot more easier to manage. But that's not to say for the fact that if you couldn't tell already, that we meet up with this guy right there on the second red pipe, which does actually give you a little bit of a feedback of what these pipes can do. Like the green ones will allow you to travel into different locations, and then as far as the red ones are concerned, well, they're just there for the sake of the forms of trying to go from one pipe to the other. And there's also the yellow pipes, which I'll get into more details about the forms of yellow pipes until for later, because, well, generally speaking, we haven't exactly stumbled across into the yellow pipes just yet, so, but I digress. So, yeah, again, I've got nothing else to say, but apart from the fact that, well, I've already mentioned about this before, that I did indeed manage to fully 100% everything in terms of Super Mario Galaxy 2025 edition for Nintendo Switch 1, within not only Mario's playthrough, but in addition to Luigi's playthrough as well. So all needs left now is just Super Mario Galaxy 2 on Nintendo Switch, because at the moment right now, I'm still in the process in regards to the forms of trying to able to find more green stars on my spare own time, and yeah, you can get the idea of how this is going. But thankfully though, skipping those particular intro sequences when it comes to the green stars and all that stuff is now skippable now. Because, unlike the original Wii version of Super Mario Galaxy 2, there's no way you can able to skip them at first, because aside from all that stuff though, for the fact that it's now possible on the Switch version. So because of that, yeah, everything else checks out there, basically. So either way, I suppose our next destination we're about to be heading to next, and that's what appears to be located somewhere in the forms of it, let's just say, some sort of like a university or something like that. So I suppose we'll discuss more about that and during at some point until tomorrow. So with that being said, folks, is that we should probably end things off this point right here. So join me next time for more of Let's Play of Mario Luigi Superstar Sagas, that we're going to be moving on to the next destination nearby to the castle town. So I'll see you guys until tomorrow. Later, fellas.